If you're thinking about a great divorce, you should watch this. Great divorces have increased over the last couple of years. This is a divorce between parties who are 50 years or older. Great divorces really are a unique set of clients to deal with because this is not only a divorce between two spouses, this is a divorce literally between their entire family. Sometimes adult children, grandchildren, sickly parents, kids with special needs. When going through a great divorce, I get a lot of spouses who are almost guilty that they are pursuing this opportunity to be happy again. I had one client who shared with me how her church had got involved in her divorce and her choice to divorce. And they should encourage her to try to stay together, but ultimately the decision was up to her. In a family law case, your great divorce does not have to be contentious. This is a person that you have spent your entire young adulthood with. You've raised children with. You've engaged in highs and lows. And so to go through a divorce and not consider this person and the fact that they're now going into a new type of living, alone, single, that would be heartless. Contact an attorney who understands your needs and understand where your life is during your time in divorce. Contact Campbell Law. Hello, I am Dr. Shawntozi Campbell, Esquire. Let's get started. What couples should never text during a divorce or custody case? This is a great question, especially for those couples who are currently in a pending family law case and they're being represented by legal counsel. Remember, once the family law case is pending and both parties have legal counsel, all communications regarding that divorce or that custody matter should go directly between the attorneys, the hired counsel, your hired guns. During this time, one spouse may try to convince the other spouse, let's settle this. Why are we doing this? Let's not keep paying the attorneys, right? And this spouse may try to convince you, let's come to our own agreement. That's a no-no. I caution you. Do not enter into any agreements with your spouse during your divorce or custody agreement. Even if you text that agreement to your spouse and they say, I agree, that does not mean that that agreement is going to be enforced or even acknowledged in court. Save yourself the time and the headache and allow your attorneys to do the negotiating for you. Contact Campbell Law for your family law matter. Question number 8. I use my inheritance to buy our marital home. Is this property considered marital property in Florida? This is a great question if you are considering divorce in Florida. Remember, an inheritance may not be considered marital property. However, if you use that inheritance to purchase a marital home with your spouse, then the court may consider that as commingling, right? You are commingling your inheritance with your marital property, and now you have joined them together, making that home now marital property. In this case, if your spouse decides they want to go ahead and sell the house and get their 50% of whatever proceeds they are entitled to, this property may be subject to for sale. Another option would be to try to show exactly how much you invested from your inheritance, and if you and your spouse had an outside agreement where your funds would not be considered marital property towards that home, but in fact, separate property. Contact Campbell Law before you make any major financial decisions, even during a marriage. Question number 8. Should I add my new spouse's name to my home I purchased before the marriage? The quick answer is no. Do not add your spouse to your property that you purchased prior to the marriage. That is automatically going to allow the court to determine that that property is now marital property because both parties' name is now reflected on the deed. Another serious concern is where parties get married, but they do not add their spouse's name to the deed. In that case, while they may have protected their property in theory on paper, right, as non-marital property, we have to consider the fact that during the marriage, that marital home, that home, non-marital property may increase in value. And that increase in value will be considered marital property and subject to equitable distribution in a family law case. Contact Campbell Law so we can help you determine the best way to structure your property and investments today. Question number 9. Why is the date of separation and divorce important? The date of separation and divorce is important because that is the cutoff date of when the courts are going to be able to determine what property is marital property versus non-marital property, when to cut off when a property has increased in value, right, and how much of that is included in marital property. Some people on a divorce do not include a date of separation, and I always think that this is very risky, especially when dealing with assets in a marriage. You want to have a clear date of when the parties stop acting as a married couple, right? It doesn't mean that you guys were not residing together. It doesn't even mean that you guys were not sleeping together, right? You can still co-parent your kids and not continue in a relationship as a married couple. And so regarding that date of separation, try to be as specific as possible because you want to protect your assets with a clear cutoff date so we know what to determine as marital property versus non-marital property. Contact Campbell Law for all your legal needs today. 10th question. English is not my first language. Am I entitled to a free interpreter at my family court hearing? In family court cases in Florida, unfortunately, a party who does not speak English is not entitled to a free interpreter. If, in fact, English is not your first language, you are responsible for providing an interpreter during every step of your court case. That's at every hearing, during mediation, even during any type of phone calls or settlement discussions. This can be very costly for some individuals during a divorce. However, please understand, you do not need a professional interpreter. You can actually bring somebody to interpret who speaks English and Spanish for you for free. Contact Campbell Law so we can help you navigate your family law case. Question number 11. My husband left me and the kids and has stopped paying the rent. Is this abandonment? If you're considering getting a divorce in Florida and your husband has left you, left the kids, no longer helping you with bills or any type of expenses, while this may be poor character, in the state of Florida, abandonment, unfortunately, is not a grounds for divorce. In Florida, there are only 2 grounds for divorce: irreconcilable differences or your spouse has become incapacitated. In that case, neither spouse is required to continue to stay in the home with that spouse if they no longer want to or if they feel like it's no longer safe for them. That party will not be considered as abandoning the relationship or even abandoning any of their property rights just for leaving the home. Contact Campbell Law so we can help you and your family navigate how to best move forward during a separation or divorce. Question number 12. My kid's mom keeps threatening me with kidnapping charges and calling law enforcement when she's mad at me. What can I do? Unfortunately, this is a very common situation when co-parenting. Some parents like to threaten kidnapping charges and even contact law enforcement when there's no real threat or threat of harm. If this is happening to you, you may be entitled to get a domestic violence injunction against your ex in order to protect yourself. There is no reason why your ex should be threatening you or contacting law enforcement during a simple time-sharing exchange. If you are feeling as if you cannot operate as a normal parent without being threatened or accused falsely, you may need to contact an attorney to help you determine if you qualify for a domestic violence injunction. I just got engaged to my fiance who lives out of state. My child and I would benefit from moving with him and becoming more stable. Will my relocation request be approved? If you're co-parenting in Florida and you want to relocate to another state, stop. Remember, Florida has strict laws on relocating a child, especially when there's a court order that allows time sharing with the other parent. If you relocate without the other parent's blessings, you may be subject to a motion to return the child or a motion to enforce the parenting plan. And what that means is the judge may tell you, honey, you can stay, but the kids got to come back, right? Even if your spouse may be more stable, the schools may be better, and you may even have a new job in that new state, you are taking a high risk if you leave the state without first going to court and filing a request for a relocation or getting the approval of your spouse. Remember, when co-parenting, you cannot infringe on the other parent's rights. You cannot invade that or make that parent's time sharing where it's impossible to exercise. Contact Campbell Law so we can help you navigate your time sharing and parenting plan after relocation. My child has excessive absences and tardiness when with the other parent. Is this neglect? When co-parenting, you have to remember that everything you do is under a microscope. That also includes whether or not you're being consistent with your child's school schedule, homework, and even extracurricular activities. In court, judges may look at a parent who is not getting their child to school on time excessively as a parent who may not be the best parent to be the primary parent. Maybe the child needs to be changed to going to the school from the dad's house. If a parent cannot get a child to school on time and has excessive absences or tardiness, that may be a sign that something else is going on in the home that needs to be addressed. You have to be vigilant when co-parenting because remember, the child is outside of your view for half the time. Contact an attorney to see what is your best options when co-parenting is not working out.